If homework is supposed to help children learn, why is it that so often it ends in an argument or with a frustrated parent teaching the lesson, or really a child who it just seems hasn't learned very much? Well, I hope I can help with answering that. My name is Paul Garrison, and I spent 17 years as a classroom teacher. For 14 of those years, I ran an after school program called the Ruus Shakespeareans, where all the students who were in that were expected to go home and practice independently on their own, like with homework. And I've seen homework used in both positive and negative ways. And I've had numerous conversations regarding homework with both parents and with students about the role that homework is supposed to play in their lives. And in this video, I want to help parents understand why homework can sometimes become a nightly battle and really what you can do about that. And we're going to look over what different homework policies look like across various schools and how you, as the parent, can set realistic homework expectations. It how homework it's not just for academics, it can be a very good teacher of executive skills, and really also, how do you know when enough homework is enough for your child? So let's take a look at all those right now, because truthfully, homework has many benefits when it's implemented correctly. Could a school eliminate almost all homework and still have students that are well educated? Well, there are schools across the country that have no homework policies, and their main argument is that the time in school should be used so efficiently, enough for the learning to happen, for practice to happen, that there really is no need for homework after that. And truthfully, after all the years I've spent in the classroom, I do think that they're onto something. I think they have a legitimate argument. I've never personally implemented this when I was a teacher, but I can see where they're coming from, because a lot of school time is implemented pretty inefficiently. And in fact, I I've almost rarely ever seen a place where every single minute is used efficiently, and the entire time every single student is focused and working hard. And if that were the case, if everything was efficient, everyone's on task the entire time, day after day after day, then I do think, yeah, there's probably no need for homework at that point. So I think these schools are onto something. The main thing is it relies on so many things during the school day essentially going perfectly, and I've rarely ever seen that happen. So this might sound like a dream come true, not having to deal with helping your child with the homework that they're given, and or it might be about a topic they don't fully understand, or maybe they don't even need practice with it. But that's assuming that everything gets handled perfectly while they're at school. So yeah, no homework, it can work, but only when everything is basically handled almost perfectly while they're at school. One Southern California school has built part of its identity around a no homework policy, a strict no homework policy. So, what exactly are they doing differently? The Van Dam Academy in Southern California has this policy, and they're very proud of it. They put it on their website. They claim that they have a no homework policy. In fact, the only thing that they require of their students when they go home is that they read at home. But other than that, everything is done at school, and they have produced very highly educated students. I believe that the highest grade they teach to is to 8th grade. And so those students go on even to high school, and they still do really, really well, and they do well even beyond high school. So their argument is that when you take a topic like math or like writing, where there's many steps involved and really important details across those steps, that should not be left to chance at home, where a student can do something wrong and maybe builds bad habits. That those steps and details should be under the view and the guidance of the teacher while they are at school. And so they just use the day much more efficiently, hence there's no need for homework. And I had found out about the Van Dam Academy many, many years ago. I was very intrigued just by their story as a school, and then their no homework policy obviously caught my attention as well. And I think their argument is absolutely defendable. And they clearly produce good results, and the families are happy about it as well. The students are probably happy about it as well. And they have a really well trained staff that if I'm not mistaken, has been together for many, many years. And so between the talented staff and the students and the expectations going in, they're able to carry it out. So a no homework policy, it is possible, and the Van Dam Academy proves this. But there's more to the story to understand about why this works. Because even though it does work at the Van Dam Academy, there's many other instances where it wouldn't necessarily work. So the main thing to take away from the Van Dam Academy is that they haven't necessarily eliminated the practice that has to occur. They just make sure that it happens during the school day. If a no homework policy can work, why can't every school just adopt that policy tomorrow? Well, it's because there's a lot that needs to go on in a school and a classroom. So, first, if we're going to say that a school has to be efficient or a classroom has to be efficient, let's just quickly define that. An efficient classroom, starting with the students, every student has to be engaged. They have to be focused, and they have to be working to improve in every class with every teacher, no interruptions, no behavior issues, day after day, year after year. And the majority of the students in the classroom, they have to also understand the lesson and understand the topic. And that's just not reality. That's not the average. The fact is, there are students with varying abilities, there are interruptions, there are behavior issues, there are some students who are not fully engaged. And so that's just not the case across the vast majority of classrooms. And I want to point out, even good classrooms with amazing teachers, it's still just not the case. So is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's just really difficult to achieve because you would need an incredibly talented staff of teachers to make this happen. And just as someone who's worked in schools before, to basically recruit or to get teachers of that caliber of talent and also retain them is just also incredibly difficult. So to have all of this work, like a no homework policy with an incredibly efficiently run classroom and an incredibly efficiently run school with no issues and all that, it's just most schools don't fit this description. So you need so many things for a no homework policy to actually be enacted. And it needs it to happen from both the staff and from the students. And anytime you hear of these things that happen, they're just the exception to the rule. A no homework policy is only as strong as the school day that happens. An unfortunate truth is that most homework is just overflow from what couldn't be covered in class that day. So many times, homework is given to students in order to help them catch up when they're academically behind, or what's most likely the case is there wasn't enough time during the school day to really practice this one thing, or for some reason the students themselves just didn't finish that assignment or that lesson. And so the homework is just to kind of make up for that lost practice time that didn't happen during the school day. And I know that sounds terrible, but it is just that's reality. That's often the case with many homework assignments. And so often this responsibility of practice that should probably be happening in school or with an assignment in school is kind of pushed onto families at home. And so yeah, parents often they're being given homework assignments for less than ideal reasons, but it is a reality and it is unfortunate, and it's just to make up for that missed time in class, especially that missed the missed time in class for practice that was necessary, and that is an inefficient use of class time. And it's unfortunate that oftentimes homework just becomes overflow for the skills not practiced during the school day. Purposeful homework can actually accomplish a lot outside of just a lesson in the school day. If a student has learned a skill really well and they have nearly mastered it, then giving students homework that's basically structured practice actually has been shown through a lot of research to have a lot of benefits for students. It really helps them give the appropriate practice and repetition to master that skill. And so in that sense, to increase their academic skills and their academic capabilities, homework and the right kind of homework that is structured actually plays an important role and has tremendous benefits. And the thing is that in order for any student to improve academically, they need the practice. And the right amount of homework on a topic they already know, structured in a way to help them improve, it and with the right amount of repetition, it actually really does benefit them far more than it might be non-beneficial, or far more than them complaining about it would suggest, basically. Of course, no homework policies, they would work under the right conditions, but at the same time, the right amount of homework on a particular skill also works under the right conditions. So it's important to remember that homework, it can be an activity that absolutely helps your child. If it's structured in a way around a skill they already know, and with the right amount of repetition, it helps them build their academic capabilities, and helps them improve quite a bit. So instruction may help them start to know and understand the skill, but they need that practice to actually master it. So when does homework stop building skills and actually start wasting a child's time? Well, there's two situations that may be. If a child is given homework on a skill that they've been taught, they know it, and they've actually mastered it, then giving them a large volume of practice on that skill that they already clearly know, there's not really much benefit to that. And that could probably be looked at as wasted time at that point. And likewise, if there's a skill that a student hasn't been taught yet, or they really just don't understand it, I'm not saying they haven't practiced it, but they just don't really understand it yet, and then to give them a bunch of independent practice at that point where they still need more guidance, they need some feedback and correction so they don't build bad habits, that is also not very beneficial to them. So yes, if a child can clearly do something well, a lot of homework on that is not only probably not necessary at all, it's really just giving no benefit really at that point. Maybe I shouldn't say no benefit, but nearly no benefit at that point. But if they haven't really had a chance to understand a skill, giving them independent practice without any support or guidance that they still clearly need, there's really no benefit at that point either. That's where homework wouldn't really be as beneficial. I mean, homework, it's the most useful after really good instruction and then right before they're attempting to master that skill. Can giving a child too little homework be just as harmful as giving them too much? Yeah, because if you have like a strict no homework policy with kids, especially with a child that clearly needs more practice, and they need more practice to master important skills like reading and writing and math, that isn't a recipe for success. And the thing is, if no homework policies only work if every single moment of class time was used efficiently. But that's not the case for the vast majority of classrooms, even good classrooms. And the fact is, in order to master a skill, they need the practice and they need the repetition. And that's where homework does have value. Not giving enough practice and not enough repetition in a skill or a topic, it leads them having very shaky foundational skills, which will harm them down the road. So, not having homework or basically even ignoring homework, it can have negative effects on children who still clearly need the practice for certain skills: reading, writing, math. Um, and homework and practicing that stuff at home is still a great place to improve on those skills. What does a child learn when homework is never checked, it's never scheduled, and it's always negotiable? Well, not a good thing. If homework is being treated as optional, the child will pick up on that. And if the homework is treated as absolutely necessary, the child will also pick up on that. A child will pick up on the expectations of the adults in their lives. So if a teacher never checks their homework, if there's no consequence for unfinished homework, if they learn that basically I can kind of not finish all this and nothing really happens to me, they've kind of learned that the homework itself, it just must not be that important. But if a child comes home and they can start other things before their homework is done or before they even start their homework, they also learn that, maybe the homework is just not that important. So as parents, you can absolutely set the expectation around homework with your kids. If you expect them to finish their homework day after day, year after year, they will pick up on that expectation. But if you don't believe that homework is all that important and it can wait after some other things, thing is they will also pick up on that expectation as well. The children will learn the priority of work from the adults around them. So what happens to a child if year after year they're never really held consistently accountable for the work that is expected of them? Well, it's never good. And low expectations for work and for homework, both in the classroom and at home, they don't set up students for success. So I can share from my personal experience. I had taught sixth grade for many, many years. And I was often told by my students that I was really the first teacher they had that had expectations that their work needed to be completed. And there was no negotiation with it. It was kind of done. And they couldn't use the excuse of, I didn't get it, so I didn't finish it. Like that was the expectation. It had to be done. And the thing is, I was also willing to hold them accountable for not doing their work. They would face a consequence consistently for not doing their work. Now, they did start to eventually finish their assignments. And I want to point out, they didn't finish their assignments because they loved every second of it. They just disliked the consequences more than anything else, and they didn't want to deal with those consequences day after day. But the thing is, once they did start completing their work, they also started improving their classroom habits and their study habits, and their academics did improve. Their focus improved. And so there's something to be said about just holding high expectations and holding students accountable. So low accountability, it doesn't help children succeed. And we as the adults need to set the expectation for the work that they're supposed to complete, that they're supposed to finish. And the low expectations, they don't protect the child. They just delay the moment where they will finally have to be responsible for completing their work. If you're constantly having a homework battle with your child, you have to ask yourself, are you teaching them that, or are you allowing that to happen? Now, that line comes from Bill Belichick, who was an NFL coach and a many-time Super Bowl winning NFL coach. And he had a lot of success with his teams in New England and New York. But it's one line he would tell his players, but also tell his assistant coaches that, hey, either we're teaching it or we're allowing it. So here's what he would mean by that. When they would see their players play on game day, they would look at, hopefully, an example of, they would have a good play. And the coaches would think back, maybe they played that well because we taught them that. But also within a game, sometimes the players don't do the right thing or do something poorly or badly. And they have to also think, well, either we've taught them that or we're allowing them to do that. So the way this can tie back into homework expectations is this. Let's say you have a child who they complete their homework first thing when they get home, no questions asked, it's completely finished. And if they had a few questions, they might get their answers in some way or ask for help. And that's a great thing. And as a parent, you can ask yourself, well, did I teach them that? Because if you've taught them that and they're doing it, that's great. But if they, for example, they don't want to finish their homework or they don't start it right away or they want to argue about why they should even start their homework or they want to whine or complain or argue with you about why they even have to do the homework and then they start to give attitude about actually completing the work and then they just want to do something else or they don't even attempt to start the work at all, well, then we as adults have to also ask, did we teach them that or are we allowing that? So, what can homework teach a child before they even answer a single question? Well, many things, because the thing is, yes, homework can have benefits, especially academic benefits, as far as their academic skills and their academic capacity. But there's also a tremendous amount of benefits as far as their executive action or executive skills. And what I mean by that is when a child completes homework without needing any reminders from adults and they do it fairly independently, well, they're showing initiative and they're showing responsibility. And if they get all of it done, it means they're finishing things that they've started. These are good executive skills. That's good executive action. And it just shows that it's beyond the skills of academics. It's more about like getting things done and doing things correctly. And the thing is, those things like that, initiative, responsibility, finishing things you start, those will carry over beyond academics. Those will carry over into many other things in their life. And so a child that it regularly does their homework and does it a certain way with little reminders and with independence, they improve much more than just their academic skills alone. Their executive skills also improve. And responsibility, see, that shows up before they even have their first answer on the homework. So why do we accept at-home practice as being okay for musicians, actors, athletes, and dancers, but then we question it for academics? Because look, a musician, they can't just practice at school, they have to practice at home. An actor can't just practice at rehearsal. They need to memorize their lines away from rehearsal. And an athlete can't just improve in practice. They have to do some outside practice as well. And we understand that in these fields, and yet the thing is, in a perfect world, yeah, maybe a child, maybe one day will never need homework again because the school day is set up perfectly and properly and all of that. But there are just some things in life that they need more practice and they will need homework in order for them to truly improve. And look, a child, they need to read as much as possible. They should be reading at home anyway. And musicians, performers, athletes, they're going to need to practice at home as well. Some things, no matter what, they're going to need additional practice. They're going to need additional homework. I saw this all the time when I ran the Ruus Shakespeareans for 14 years. No matter how good our rehearsals were, all of the actors, all of the musicians, all the dancers, they would have to practice things at home as well. And so just as parents, as adults, and as students, we just have to accept that not everything can be a no homework policy. There are just some things that will have to be practiced at home. Why might the strongest student actually need less homework and a student who is struggling would actually need far more practice than initially thought? Now, if a child can already do the work quite well, there's probably no need for them to do the homework. And in that case, a no homework policy for them kind of makes sense because they've already mastered that skill. That being said, a child who is struggling, they probably need much more practice. And the reason why I say that is very often with children who are struggling with the skill, whether it's reading, writing, or math, maybe at least in my experience, I've always kind of found it's initially kind of thought we should make the work less demanding for them and also maybe give them less of it. And I've often found that is not necessarily the most beneficial. Maybe making it less demanding or in one sense, but there is still a need for practice and repetition. And so a child that's struggling, homework would actually benefit them greatly in a sense, and they probably need more of it. And I want to point out it's structured practice. It's not just random, but they need more practice and more repetition built in order to help them achieve that mastery as well. So if the child clearly understands the material well, then yeah, there's probably just no need for them at that point, and it's probably a bit of a waste of their time. But if a child is struggling, they need additional practice, not less. So, what would homework look like if it was built around mastery instead of just compliance? Well, imagine a school day where the student has enough time to learn all of their skills and topics, and they have enough time to practice it, and they have enough time to master it, all under the guidance of the teacher. And then this allows them for extra time after school to do their musical instruments, to play their sports, and to read great books and read great novels. It does sound amazing, and I want to point out it is possible. It needs so many things to go right in a school day, things that sometimes are out of our control, but it is possible. And I guess if we can make a situation where everything is covered and we give them time to practice and we give them time to master during the school hours, yes, that would be the ideal situation. And yes, that would be wonderful because now they can do all the other extracurricular activities after school, and then they get to spend more time with family. And if you could ever get your child into that situation, that's fantastic. That'd be amazing. The thing that I want to point out is that many skills just still require the practice. So it's not that no homework eliminates the practice, it's just making sure that the practice still does happen. And in an ideal situation, if they can get all that done during the school hours and then move on to other things after school, but not necessarily have homework on that, yeah, that would be great. But the ideal is just not no homework. The ideal is that enough structure, guidance, and time was given to make the practice happen and the mastery happen as well. So homework, look, it's not automatically good and not automatically bad. If you can have the perfect ideal homework situation where there's no homework and everything's covered during the school day, that is great. And maybe that's what we should all be striving for. But then there's reality and there's most situations, homework is going to happen. And it does have benefits if it's structured and it's designed around skills that they've been taught, but they still need the practice to master it. Homework has benefits. And likewise, us as the adults, especially as parents, we have the ability to set the expectations with homework. If children finish their work independently, day after day, night after night, hopefully that's something that we've taught. But if it's a nightly battle all the time, if they think that it's something that's optional that they can argue with, or that they can kind of whine or have a tantrum to get their way out of it, well, either we're teaching it or allowing it. But either way, we have a chance to make homework not become a nightly battle and make sure that it actually is helping children at the same time. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, take care.